everyone. And now I want to bring in our next guest here of this hour to help break down this terrible situation that happened in New Orleans. Let's bring him in right now. Friend here of Live Now from Fox, Scott Duffey, a former FBI special agent. Thanks so much for joining us. Such terrible news on this New Year's Day, and now we're learning just so much more information. What is your first thought, Scott, on the fact that the FBI now believes that he did not act alone, the suspect?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on this afternoon, Mike, and Happy New Year under these, again, tragic and violent circumstances. So it doesn't surprise me. I believe from this morning as things unraveled rather quickly of such a stature, that there are missteps when you have information being provided live. And so I believe the ASAC, the Assistant Special Agent in charge, it was just a misstep. And I'm glad that that was quickly corrected well before the news conference with regards to this is being investigated as a terroristic attack. With regards to other individuals, that could mean a lot of different things. In other words, did this individual act with others who are currently on the ground, whether it be in New Orleans, throughout suburban of New Orleans, or in other areas working to again affect um, other events that could be taking place? And so it could also mean that this individual acted alone here in the United States, but being supported financially as well as other types of support from international and foreign governments. And so that's what I believe the FBI is quickly looking to see. Is there imminent danger to public safety with regards to this one incident as we're talking about now?
And Scott, explain to our viewers just how, looking back here, of course, there's going to be a lot of people saying, okay, maybe this should have been done, this should have been looked at. But when you are dealing with a suspect that is a U.S. citizen, just how does it go about? How do you know if that person is sympathizing with ISIS ideology? And how do you go without, infiltrating and getting, rid of people's personal rights without, truly discovering that they have these ideologies?
Yeah, Mike. So, with regards to ideologies, freedom of speech, whether it be hateful speech or not, whether it be anti American rhetoric or not, especially in wake of a new year and in wake of a changing of administration. So, you have a contentious political climate, at least within the political elections leading up to the election. So, you're you're talking about there are lots of people who vent their ideas and are well within their rights to do so. It is when those thoughts starts to become criminal in nature. In other words, somebody who's putting together a plan to do something as like today. And so this individual, um, did he act alone? And as we are seeing, at least early onsets, there are others that the FBI believes this person was working in concert with. And like I said earlier, is that some are they here present in the United States? And do they pose imminent danger? So the FBI receives information through tips. It could be that somebody is in a bar, restaurant, some social engagement, overhears a conversation, is disturbed by that conversation, and believes it's not just somebody who's exploiting their rhetoric, but somebody who might be speaking to somebody else about a plan. And often it is those type of tips where somebody can say, "Hey, I was sitting here and overheard some sort of attack being planned." And so tips come in through a variety of ways into the FBI, and the FBI is constantly running down tips that many times are often just rhetoric, just conversation, well protected under the Constitution. But the FBI is also in a unique position, and the public often does not hear about plans that are exploited by the FBI, where the FBI believes, hey, something is there that's going well beyond rhetoric. And so, thereby, can we put in whether it be an undercover, a cooperative source, and they can learn additionally if the person that they have now targeted is simply exploiting rhetoric or is actually initiating a plan, such as we have seen earlier this morning.
Let's also talk about the timing here of this incident that took place, and maybe try to delve a little into that. This happened after the ball drop there on Bourbon Street, and it happened really around locally in the 2 a.m. hour. So it didn't happen, right before midnight or right after midnight. Tell me a little bit about that. What your thinking is on that? It seems like if you would want to get maximum exposure, you would do it maybe right before or right after midnight, because that would seem that you would have the maximum amount of people on that street.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And so I would be interested when I heard that this had taken place this morning, and then when I heard that it was hours after the new year had struck, that why at this particular hour? So there can be a couple of things here. It could be that the individual was lying in wait, had been doing his own surveillance and determined that at midnight, the stroke of midnight, leading up to the stroke of midnight, that everyone was very aware. It ultimately comes down to vigilance, not only by law enforcement, but by everyday people. And so this individual may not have felt that that was a good time. And so he could have been lying in wait for hours. And then what took place, and I do believe the FBI and local law enforcement will be able to determine that through video and whatever else they can extract from the crime scene, that this individual then saw some vulnerability, whatever that vulnerability is. If somebody really is intent on doing harm, they are very likely to be able to execute that plan if that plan is not foiled much earlier. So here we have a day where the plan is in full execution mode. And now that individual has to figure out, how am I going to execute my plan? Am I going to get out of the car and walk into what most likely no magnetometers, none of such that exist, and where somebody's going to be able to enter into that crowd and then just start using his weapons? Or was his plan initially to drive his vehicle? And so thereby he might have been driving the perimeter looking for a vulnerability. In other words, how can I get around whatever concrete and vehicle barriers exist? But also law enforcement. For example, was there a hole, some sort of weak link? And thereby he said, this is the moment I'm going to be able to get my vehicle past without being shot immediately, and be able to do the harm that he intended to do, and ultimately was successful in that plan.
So tragic, and to be thinking about all the revelers there that were just trying to celebrate the new year, and then they look and they see just a truck barreling down on them and then crashing into loads of people. It's just so disturbing on so many levels. Now, going forward here for this investigation, now that they have the name of the suspect, what is the latest that the FBI and other top government agencies are looking in to this person?
Yeah, so now that you have a name, now they're able to work backwards. They're able to exploit whatever digital media this individual had, phone or phones, on his person as well as in his vehicle. They'll be able to pinpoint where this person was last. For example, did this person travel from the state of Texas to Louisiana? At what point did he begin this travel with the intent of doing harm on New Year's Day? And ultimately, um, be able to conduct necessary search warrants and identify co-conspirators. And then ultimately, public safety is the utmost. So this is an individual I have yet to hear from the press conference or other information that we got the all clear. So that tells me that they are vigorously tracking down other potential individuals that could be in and around the area or in other locations. Is this the one and only, or is there subsequent attacks? Is there anything on their phones, computers, et cetera, whatever they take out of houses? Where, if any, hotels did this person stop at? All that data, that information, they'll be able to put together a pretty good narrative as much as when this plan started, and is there additional potential acts that are being planned as we speak.
And lastly, Scott, there was expected tonight, of course, to be all eyes on New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl at the Superdome. That has been postponed for at least 24 hours as they work this investigation here. But because the FBI said that they don't believe that the suspect acted alone, is that one of the main reasons that the Sugar Bowl probably isn't happening tonight?
I would think so, Mike. I believe that in any case, whether it be an act of terror or a mass attack of somebody, having some grudge and thereby doing this as a lone wolf act, where law enforcement in general wants to put the public at ease as quick as possible and say, go about your day, continue on with your celebrations, but always being mindful of your surroundings. Here, because you have such a major incident, and then of course hours before the Sugar Bowl tonight within the same jurisdiction, I believe that the FBI and local law enforcement partners believed that it is necessary and needs additional time with 24 hours to conduct a thorough investigation to determine that no further public safety from this very particular incident and whatever group he may or may not belong to exists. And so at least start with a 24-hour postponement. But if they continue to do their investigation and are no closer, you may see a continued postponement. So I believe this is an indication that public safety is their paramount, and they do not have that comfort level they need to ensure that that tonight would go off without a hitch.
Scott Duffey, thanks so much again for all of your expertise on these matters. It's unfortunate that we are speaking about it, but that is the reality that we are in right now. So, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year to you, and we always appreciate your inputs.
Thank you.
You take care. All right, everyone. We will take